So our son was a super preemie, right? So she said 50-50 chance of survival. Now, if the baby survives, there's a huge chance that they're going to have severe disabilities because you could see everything like the tiny veins and just this little, I don't know, like a tree frog almost.
Coming up is the miraculous journey of Super Preemie Raymond, who was born at 24 weeks, told by his mother Ginny. He had a 50% chance of survival, a great chance of being disabled, but through the miraculous intercession of St. Katherine Laboure, he survived and is now 30 years old with no disabilities. This is the Miracle Hotline Podcast. I'm Dino Pandolfo. Everyone has experienced a miracle at some point in their life. Maybe you have prayed for a miracle, or maybe you are in desperate need of help. When a miracle happens, it is overwhelming, amazing, and you are so grateful for the gift God has given you. This podcast gives you the opportunity to share your miracle story so that others may believe and have hope, and it will encourage them to keep praying in difficult times. This show examines miracles. It includes first-person accounts, interviews, and investigations of the most credible and amazing miracle stories. You can tell us about your miracle by leaving a message at 412-446-0330 or visiting miraclehotline.com. We may play your message or interview you on the podcast. Subscribe to the Miracle Hotline Podcast on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, or any podcast app to automatically download the newest episodes. Here we have Ginny Minutello. I got a summary of the miracle, and I thought it was really interesting. So we're going to interview her, and this is kind of what I was wanting, is just regular people who have miracles, which I think everybody has had a miracle at some point, and that's why we want to hear normal miracles that have happened to people. So Ginny has a miracle story, and I don't know a whole lot about it, so we're going to find out together about her miracle story. So now we have on the line Ginny Minutello, and welcome to the show, Ginny.
Hi, Dino. Good morning. Thanks for having me.
Yeah, thank you for sharing your story. So I guess just go ahead and tell us your story, and I'll jump in if I have any questions.
Okay. So my miracle stories are miracle boy, a son, our miracle son, who's 31 years old today, will be 31 in July. So he was our firstborn. So my pregnancy, I was 29 years old when I was pregnant with our first child. And I thought that pregnancy, everybody's got a different pregnancy, but, to experience a pregnancy myself, I didn't know what normal was and what abnormal was. So I was very sick in the first trimester, but even in the second trimester, I just couldn't keep anything down. I found myself, nauseous and throwing up a lot. And then it came to a point where I had aches, like my stomach would harden. Again, my first pregnancy, so I didn't know what was going on, right? And so when I'd go to the doctor and describe it, he would say, "You're not having contractions, are you?" I go, "I don't know what they are." I don't know what they are. Because I would say it would ache and then the ache would radiate to my back. And then, but I was so early in the pregnancy that he was baffled, like, there's no way you're going to labor. And so he gave me a medication and he said, "Take this when you feel it." And so I would, but then it got to the pregnancies, full-term pregnancies go to 40 weeks.
Yeah.
And 23 weeks, I figured they were contractions at that point because I described it to the OB and I said, "I see my stomach ball up in the front." And when he heard that, he goes, "Ooh," "Okay, just stay in bed." And then at my 24th week, the contractions were just more. And I also had a condition called placenta previa, which caused bleeding. So I was, spotting, bleeding a little bit. And he said, the placenta is the one that nourishes the baby while they're in the womb. And it was sitting very low to the opening, the cervix. And so it would bleed. And he was, "Oh, that happens. It's not normal, but it's a complication of pregnancy, but
Mm-hmm.
you could go to full term. And so he was just, my OB was a male. And so he was just saying, we'll watch you, guide you, and whatever. So 24 weeks, one morning, I just, felt a leak. And I called him. I said, I feel something, I don't know what it is. And he goes, did your water break? I go, I don't know.
Yeah, not your first pregnancy, you would never
Yeah,
know
exactly. I
what's
don't know.
normal.
Yeah, it's like the same response when he asked me, "Are you contracting?" I go, "I don't know," and so he goes, "You know what? Meet me in the emergency room." And as soon as I hang up, gosh, I knew the water because gosh, right? I mean, it was a gosh.
Oh,
I'm like,
wow.
oh no, I am going to have this baby. So we were in the ER and early morning. It was, yeah, he was born at 3 o'clock in the morning. So went there and I remember the car ride. It was like my husband and I were like, we didn't know what was happening. And I go, gosh, we didn't even do Lamaze yet. We didn't
Yeah.
even do it. Like, and
But when it's
so
24 weeks and the baby is coming, were you concerned? I mean, what did the doctors say? I mean, you want to try to get to 40. I mean, were
yeah,
you like terrified as to what was going to happen at that early?
absolutely. Yeah, absolutely. So nobody was talking to us about the viability of the baby at that point, right? All it
Hmm.
was getting me to deliver because again, the water is broken. There's no other
Yeah,
recourse.
you
Yeah,
have to
you have to
deliver the
deliver.
baby. Hmm.
Yeah, and because it wasn't going to be a cesarean, it was all natural vaginal delivery. It was just okay, bring her into the OR and deliver. And so when the baby came, the nurse, that nurse was a blessing, and I wish I knew who she was because she just leaned over me and she goes, "Honey, babies this little don't even cry, and your baby was crying." And I
Wow.
thought, oh, okay. So that was consolation, right? It was so consoling.
Yeah.
But after that, of course, they had to whisk the baby away fast because they had to take care of him. Oh, no, she said, you have a boy. That's what she said. You have a boy, and he was crying. And I'm like, oh, wonderful.
Yeah. So that
But
sounds pretty good.
yeah, but then I knew because if a full term pregnancy is 40 weeks, I mean, I can't imagine the development of this little guy, right? There's
Yeah.
no way he's developed, fully developed. So anyway, so when they put me in a regular room, that's when the pediatric, okay, so this was a teaching hospital that I delivered in.
Okay.
And so the resident was the one that came to me and said, the baby, we're going to try to stabilize the baby, but you have to know that these little preemies, in fact, they call them super preemies. So apparently, if a baby is born at 37 weeks, 37 weeks, they're considered a preemie. But between 23 and 28 weeks, they're extremely premature.
Yeah.
So that hospital called them super preemies. So our son was a super preemie, right? So she
Hmm.
said, these babies, 50-50 chance of survival. Okay. It's a 50-50 chance. Then she said,
Wow.
yeah,
That's
50.
really bad.
Yeah, super bad, right? And then
That's horrible.
yeah, and if it's that bad, this is the next statement. Now, if the baby survives, if they belong to the 50%, there's a huge chance that they're going to have severe disabilities. They're going to be in the hospital a lot. You're going to, it's going to be a roller coaster and, all these things. I'm like, okay, thank you. Like, thanks for that information, right?
Yeah.
So yeah, it's 50-50 chance.
Ugh.
So I said, okay. And so then the days went by. I mean, no, so that was the first day. Then the second day, because I knew 50-50, I called on a Catholic priest. I said, we're just going to do this. We're going to have him baptized just to make sure, right?
Yeah. Right.
Yeah. And because I went home the next day, right? I mean, they didn't keep me long because such a tiny baby, delivery, no cesarean. I
So
just walked
you
out.
so you went home and the baby was still in the hospital. You had to leave
Yes.
the baby there. Oh my gosh.
And we were empty. It felt
Yeah.
so, yeah. But he needed to be there
Yeah.
because his lungs were very undeveloped. Dino, I have never seen. That's why
Yeah.
I'm
So
a.
how much did he weigh? How
Oh,
big was he? Because I know my wife, was a preemie, and that
oh,
her father always says, "Oh, you were so tiny, you were like a little kitten, and I held you in the palm of my one hand." And he says
oh,
how small she was. So I mean,
I wonder how tall
how
she was.
small was your baby?
Our baby was 13 inches long, and he weighed. This is funny, in the NICU, neonatal intensive care unit, NICU. They use the metric system, and I keep laughing because I go, maybe they use a metric system so that then it sounds like they're heavy. So he was
Yeah.
like 635 grams. They go by grams.
Yeah.
630. And if you
Yeah, that
convert it,
sounds like a lot. I mean, that
yeah,
sounds
but
like pretty good. 635, yeah.
yeah, but then if you convert it to pounds, it's only 1 pound and five
Oh,
ounces or something like that. Something
yeah.
really puny, right? So he is only a pound and a few ounces,
Yeah.
heavy. And you could see that he had no cartilage on his ears. His ears were floppy because it was just all
Oh,
skin. And then he was dark, like, because you could see everything, like the tiny veins. And again, he was so underdeveloped, just this little, I don't know, like a tree frog almost. I mean, I hate to sound
yeah,
like that.
right. So his
Really,
skin was like transparent.
oh, very transparent. He
Oof.
was so like my husband's ring, his wedding ring, because they had to. Okay, so he needed to be on a ventilator because
Hmm.
his lungs were extremely undeveloped, right?
Yeah.
Underdeveloped, not fully, and yeah, just not developed. So he needed a ventilator to stay alive. But when they would change his beddings and everything, they would take him out, and then the respiratory therapist would have to what they call bag him, like manually do the ventilating for him with a bubble. I'm sure you've seen it on
Yeah.
TV where they bag them. So whenever they would change the beddings and we happened to be visiting, they would allow us to hold him while they would bag him.
Hmm.
And we didn't realize, well, we knew he was very small, but my husband's ring could go up his leg, up to his groin area, the thigh. It would go
Oh,
up.
wow. So it was,
Yeah,
his leg was the size of a finger.
yes, skinnier because my husband's ring was still loose
Wow.
around his
That's hard to
thigh.
even imagine how thin
How
his
small
leg.
is that? Yes, it was so
Yeah.
thin. It was smaller than my thumb. I mean, and I have small fingers. So yeah, he was really small. But like
Yeah.
I said, we just took it every day. I just, after the priest left, I felt good because we knew that he was baptized and whatever happens, we just, yeah, every day I just figured, okay, we'll just take things as they come,
Yeah.
can't do anything. It's like, but you know what was funny? I would keep asking because he was hooked up. It was awful to see him on this, what they call an isolate. It wasn't even an incubator. I don't know, but or maybe it was an incubator, but it had more, because again, the machine had to breathe for him. He had IV lines everywhere to
Okay. So
check.
it wasn't
Yeah,
just an incubator.
yeah.
It was a
It was a special.
ventilator and everything.
Yeah,
I
it
see.
was a special, yeah. And so we were blessed to be in that hospital because they had what they called tertiary care NICU, where it's the best, most modern, and, the facility was equipped to take care of patients like him. So as a whole, like I said, I was in the right hospital at the right
Yeah.
time. Yeah. So like I said, the days would go by and I went every day because I taught at the school over there. So the hospital was really close to where I was teaching. And so it was easy for me to visit every day. So my lunch hour was with him in the IC in NICU. I made sure to visit. And then so my husband and we had a routine. We found a routine. We would talk to the nurse. So it's a 12-hour shift for these nurses. We would talk to the night nurse before she handed over to the day nurse, right? So we would talk to the nurse that ended their duty, and then we would talk to the next nurse who ended her duty. So we would get reports morning and night.
Okay.
First thing in the morning, we'd talk to the nurse. Last thing before going to bed, we would talk to the nurse again.
Yeah.
Just to see what the progress was.
Right.
And so 3 weeks went by, and, it was touch and go, really. And it's amazing how these doctors, just read their patients. Because these patients can't communicate with you, right? So they would just go by their blood gases and just these tests that they would always run, and physical observation. And so his oxygen saturation they would watch. Preemies like these, they always had to be careful about hemorrhaging in the brain, because their blood vessels are so thin and fragile, and then with the oxygen levels that they need to breathe, some preemies have become blind because of the oxygen saturation levels, because of the pressure.
So you're just worrying and worrying and worrying, right? I mean,
I was nervous, I mean, I don't know that I worried maybe I should have worried. No, I'm glad I didn't worry as much, because it would have driven me crazy.
Yeah, there's nothing you can do.
There's nothing I could do.
You could just pray and hope everything's fine. I would worry. That's just me. I would worry myself absolutely sick. But I guess after a while, you have to go on. You can't just be debilitated from worry. So you just go through the motions of your life and leave. And if you're a faithful person, maybe more than me, you would just leave it up to God, I guess. That's all you can do.
You're right. I can't say I didn't worry, but I didn't focus on it. I didn't, I didn't sit there and worry, because what helped is, coming from a faith-filled family. My mother particularly said, you know what? She said, I pray more for you and your husband, because I don't want this to tear your marriage apart. This is stressful. She said, I pray for you. And she said, Ginny, leave the baby to God. God's going to take care of that baby. Whatever it is, he's going to take care of that baby. So don't worry about that. Just pray for your marriage and whatever. And what she said was true. I found out, because whenever we would go, right, so we were around other babies, and the nurses would say, oh, that baby, they're, it's sad, because I would visit next door, and they would say, that's good, because this baby's parents stopped coming. It's so stressful for them. They're in a point of separating, I mean,
right.
So what my mom said, resonated when the nurse told me that. I'm like, wow.
Yeah.
It is. So, I leaned on faith, and every day I just said, well, you know what? I don't know how I'm going to take care of disabled child, but, you're going to equip me with this. Because I was really preparing for the worst, right? Because they said 50-50, and if 50%, I'm like, okay, And so when the weeks kept going, so when I would go and the doctors would do their rounds, I would ask the chief or the attending, I go, but the question I had was, how do you know when this is enough? How do you know when it's enough? Because again, he was hooked up to so many things, right? He was so dependent on a ventilator, and he wasn't eating on his own. And we're just watching his, vitals go up, down. If he had a seizure, he also had seizures. I'm like, what the heck are we doing, right? Like, how long? So then I had to realize, okay, fine. I'm in a teaching institution. Is he an experiment? Maybe, what are we doing? And so when the doctors would tell me, listen to their answer. When I'd ask, how do you know when it's done? Like, how do you know when to let go? And the answer was always, he hasn't given us signs. He hasn't given us enough signs. And I'm like, okay, I would trust what they would say. Okay.
Yeah.
I wouldn't you. I'm like, okay, and now when I think about it, because I'm talking to you about it, I said, maybe it's because we were in a Christian hospital. Really.
So they give more effort.
Maybe.
Yeah.
That's what I'm thinking,
Mm-hmm.
right? Because we were in a Christian hospital. And for him to say, Dr. Hopper was saying that, he hasn't given us any signs. It's
Yeah.
like, okay. But again, the back of my mind was, what sign are they waiting? What are they looking for, right? Because his nourishment was all electrolytes. They would
Yeah.
take his blood, they would check the electrolytes, and they would keep changing this little bag, IV bag. Oh, he needs more potassium. Oh, he needs more, it's like sodium. He needs more. I'm like,
Yeah.
wow, okay. It was exacting for them in that regard. But everything else was an inexacting science, really, when I think about it. Because 3 weeks later, I asked, and they said, well, he's not getting better, he's not getting worse.
Oh.
And okay, so what now? So they approached us and said, there's a new drug that came out. It just became FDA approved 3 days ago. And it's really a drug that's supposed to be given immediately after delivery. And your son has been out already for over 3 weeks. But would you be willing to try it? Right? They had to ask permission.
Yeah.
And we thought, okay, what do we have to lose? Right? We have nothing to lose. It's not going to make him worse. It may make him better.
Right.
It's called a surfactant, and which is used commonly daily today, right, for preemies. So we said, sure, go ahead, do it. And so they did, and it didn't do much.
Yeah.
We weren't surprised. Okay, it didn't do much. About that time, my husband was working in an office, and his assistant knew, of course, what was going on. And she handed my husband this medallion that was given to her by her mom. Her mom said, take this to your boss and have him do the sign of the cross with this medal on the baby, and just see what happens. Those are exact words. Just see what happens. Like, okay, so my husband did as instructed, and did the sign of the cross. I didn't even know what the medallion, who was on the medallion or what was.
Right.
But so so that night we left. It was just goodbye and whatever. Then before we went to bed, the nurse said, "Yeah, it's the same thing. Status quo. He's just here and no emergencies, whatever." So I go, okay. Next morning, when we called, the nurse said, what did you do? What happened? I said, what do you mean? His saturations, the oxygen levels, everything's so stable. We're not having to, rush and adjust and do much of anything. And we're like, so wait, we did something. We did something. So I looked at the medallion, and it was a medallion of Saint Catherine of Laboure. And I go, I don't know who it is. I have no clue who this saint is. But in the meantime, I forgot to tell you, Dino, my mother-in-law had a medal of the miraculous, miraculous medal, which she stuck on the incubator. Okay. She just left it there. And she said, oh, a nun gave this to me when my daughter was born, early also.
So you had two medallions.
Well, yeah, one was stuck in the incubator since
you did the sign of the cross with the St. Catherine of Laboure.
Yes.
And then you left the miraculous medallion on the incubator the same night?
No. What I was going to say was that miraculous medal had been there from the day he was, when my in-laws came. When my mother-in-law came to visit him, she left that medallion inside. She said,
that was there all along. Okay.
All along. And you know what? Sadly, I never paid attention to her. That's how bad I was. That's how unfaithful. I mean, when I look at it now, when I think about it, really, I was prayerful. I did the right things. I went to church. I did the whole thing. But when that medal was put in, I didn't even bother to, find out what it was. I just knew it was a mother, but I didn't even ask for her intercession. No, I
What's
didn't even think anything.
what is the miraculous medal? What does that look like? I know it's pretty well known. Can you describe it?
Yes, it's Mother Mary standing with her arms stretched out, and she's stepping on a snake.
Okay.
Yeah, and in the back this, it's her initial M with, oh gosh, I should know this well. What stars, Anyway, but so the connection then. So when I had to find out, I go, who is Saint Catherine of Laboure then? Who is this saint? So I looked it up and found out that she was a saint who Mother Mary appeared to and asked to have the image of the miraculous medal, made.
Oh, so it did. So it
connected.
It connected.
There was a
so
connection.
Saint Catherine Laboure, or Mary, told Saint Catherine Laboure to create the miraculous medal icon.
Yes, and to distribute it. Have the bishop make it and distribute it.
Oh, wow! So those are connected then.
Yeah.
Wow.
I'm like, oh wow! So of course I paid more attention to the miraculous medal. I'm like, what? This is insane. Yeah, it was exciting when I found out who she was.
Yeah.
And so I paid more attention then. It caught my attention. That whole experience just drew me to Mother Mary. I go, wow, you've been here all along. And so after that, our journey wasn't without nervousness. I mean, worry. It was worry filled all throughout. And so he needed heart surgery. And, so we just said, we always had to follow, right? Hey, this is what we need to do. And, the question was always, would you do this if this was your child?
Yeah.
And of course they would say, yes, of course. Okay. Okay. And then when he went for that heart surgery, that was a big thing, of course, because it was open heart. And
gosh.
Yeah, it was open heart
on
surgery.
On a tiny baby.
Yes. He said his heart's just the size of a walnut, like smaller than
how can you even operate on something that tiny?
Yeah. But we were fortunate because we had, fantastic doctors. The heart surgeon was Leonard Bailey. He was the heart transplant. I don't know if you're too young to know this, Dino, but baby Faye was the first baby who got a heart transplant, from a pig or something.
Oh, right.
Anyway, he was a surgeon. He was a guy who did the surgery. So we were, like I said, there were a lot of consolations throughout the, trials.
Yeah.
So, So when he came up from surgery, I was there waiting, and I was with him, and I visited and I would watch, and I kind of knew what monitors to watch and, see. And so I was watching and I go, hey, his oxygen is dropping. I mean, it's really dropping. So I told the nurse, I said, the oxygen levels are dropping. And no matter what she did, it was a dropping, and he was crashing in front of me.
And this is after the open heart surgery.
Yes, this was immediately the morning they brought him up. And so I thought, oh my gosh, I go, this is it. Is this it? Like, and they were calm about it, but they had to call the doctor. The crash cart came. They didn't even have time. They didn't even have time to push me out, like to say, hey, go out. None. They were all just, hurrying. And I could tell this was a big deal. Like, oh no, we're going to lose him kind of thing.
Oh gosh.
But you know what? We did it. It's like, okay. But still, I mean, even having gone through all of that, when we brought him home, everything was still unknown, right? I mean, how do we know what kind of brain this baby's going to have? What are his disabilities? What are we going to deal with? Nobody knew. We just knew that, okay, he passed all their signs, whatever signs they were looking for. He passed everything.
Yeah. So after he had the open heart surgery and he was crashing, he survived that though. He survived that. He came back.
Yeah, he survived that. And so it went back. So the whole protocol there is this. You're born this this tiny. And if you survive and you're staying around, then we wait for a certain weight. Okay. So they'll say 3 pounds, we're going to try to get you off the ventilator. That's the first thing they have to do is get this baby off the ventilator. So they watch, right? And so with him, it was 3 pounds. And so they attempted to take him off one time and it didn't work. He couldn't survive without the ventilator. So they put him back on it and then gave him a few weeks to gain weight and to grow a little, to mature, basically. They wait to mature, for maturity to happen.
Yeah.
And so they wait until he's able to breathe on his own. And then when he's able to breathe on his own, then they start, feeding him also naturally, right? Instead of through the tube, gavage feeding. Now you introduce the bottle. And then the process is they just wait for this baby to grow, gain weight until the 5. And then when you get to 5 pounds, then you can take the baby home,
Okay.
Take the baby home when they're 5 pounds, and then you'll take him home with whatever medications he needs, and you have to be on top of it. If he needs an apnea monitor, you're gonna go home with that just to make sure he stays breathing. So you become a nurse you
have to be trained on how to take care of the baby that has all those needs, special needs,
medical needs, and so. That's basically what happened. Was after the scary time, he had one more surgery that he had to undergo before being released, but it was minor. And so, at that point, it was when I would visit, I guess I would just go with a happy heart, like, well, he's with us and this is what we have today. So just enjoy today.
Yeah.
So we would make light of it. Like they would have to weigh him. So whenever we were there, and they would be weighing him, we would be there at that time, part of the day of them weighing. We would make it a game. We would guess, okay, what does he weigh today?
Yeah.
How many grams today? So, like I said, we just had to find, joy in that.
Yeah, because it's a long haul. And it could get better or worse at any time, and you just have to be prepared for that. And even though everything went well, it was still a long process with a lot of ups and downs.
Yeah. Because, here's the thing. When you're told, I forgot to tell you, the other thing they told us was earlier on, like after I delivered, they said, besides the 50-50 thing, we also have to tell you that girls do better than boys.
Oh, jeez. Yeah.
All the odds are against us already,
So the main miracle that happened is the turning point that when you did the sign of the cross with the St. Katherine Laboure medal, you think that was the miracle there, where if you hadn't done that, or if St. Catherine did not intercede, that your baby may not have survived. And once you did that sign of the cross with that medal, that all of a sudden he improved quite a bit. That's the main miracle.
For me, that's what I saw. That was like the aha. Like that was a big aha moment, right? Like, hey, look what faith can do.
Yeah.
Because it again, and I look at sacramentals very differently now, even because I think people sometimes they think that it's just this, souvenir or, just
or superstition too. A lot of people, people put the medal of what St. Anthony or what's the one you put in your car? St. Christopher, you put it above your visor for travel or different things. And it seems superstitious.
Yes, exactly. So you have to look at it. And that's when I said, when we did the sign of the cross, it was with faith. We did the sign of the cross. Like, okay, you're in charge. But it was always you're in charge.
So why do you think it's a miracle and not just a coincidence that it just happened at the right time? And he did take that drug just a few days earlier. Maybe that kicked in. Like, why do you think it's a real miracle? What makes you think it's a miracle?
I think, first of all, I've decided, number one, that coincidence, there's no such thing. It's all providential. It's always a God thing. It's a God thing. But even at that time, it was just a coincidence and whatever. But again, the fact that he was a boy, they told me that boys don't make it, so, but he was there and he was quote unquote, making it, whatever that meant, like at that time. And then all the vital signs and whatever the doctors were looking for, it kept getting checked off, check, and then they also told us, what happens when you go home is babies like this, don't be surprised that you're going to be back within the first 2 years. Babies come back. They end up staying for 5 months. They have complications. So I was very grateful that they would tell us what could happen, right? All the things that I should expect so that I would be mentally prepared, emotionally prepared. And we were. But you know what? We never went back after we took the baby home. So here's the other reason I think it's a miracle. My due date was November 20th. Okay. So what was happening then was our son was just developing outside the womb. So he was, he was baking outside my womb. I was watching this whole human development occur the last, trimester and a half outside my womb. And so when they said that, you would have to come back, because of medical stuff, we took him home November 21st, day after my due date was when we took him home. And we never went back. He was never confined again. So that's a miracle. If it's standard for these super preemies to be back in the hospital within the first 2 years, that's why I knew.
So you beat all the, or you and the baby and God beat all the odds. The odds were against you that he would just be totally, which he is now. You said he's totally 100% healthy and normal. Is that right?
Yes, he's fine. He's he's driving. He's independent. I'm not having.
And he's 31 now.
He'll be 31 in July. He's 30, yes. And every
he's
year.
30. So that was a long time ago, but he's never had any health issues, especially, from being born premature.
Yeah, okay, I can't say he has never had the healthy issues, not major, not anything to write, not anything to cry about. But
nothing out of the ordinary that a normal person would have.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. None of that. None. And so he's not blind,
And he's
all of that.
Wow. So that's the miracle. He was born with all the odds against him to even survive, to even be without any disability, and he survived all that. And that okay.
And I understand. And he's a functioning, contributing, citizen in society.
Wait till he hears this story about himself. He'll be like, "Mom, I'm 30 years old. Let it go."
Exactly. But it is. It's amazing. I look back and okay. So the other thing was, or the other people who helped us. So my mother, like I said, was a big, influence in my how to approach things, right? Where she said, pray for your marriage. Don't worry about the baby. Leave the baby up to God. And so my mom and my sister and my father traveled to Assisi and Italy. And I guess I sent them a footprint of the baby. And so, of course, his footprints were only probably 2 inches, or 1.5. I don't know, really small. So I sent it to them, and I guess they took it with them to Assisi, and they befriended the nuns at St. Clare's Church. And so they prayed for the baby. They couldn't believe that it was that tiny. Like, these are human footprints of a baby. So
this is when he was still in the hospital.
In the hospital, yeah.
So you took a picture of his footprint?
No, the nurses. Where the nurses were really good because, like I said, they tried to, give us like little bits of joyful pieces of him because he knew we couldn't take him home.
That's that ink footprint that you get like when they're first born. Like the
Yeah,
stamp. Yeah.
yes, the stamp pad. Like they put
Yeah.
the foot on the
Right,
pad,
right.
and then yeah,
And his
exactly.
were very like super tiny.
Super small. Yeah. What's this? Like somebody, because my mom had it in her house, and she has a
Do you still have that picture, I'm sure,
oh
somewhere?
yeah, yes,
Can
for
you
sure.
send that? I think we're gonna make that the icon for your
Oh,
podcast.
okay, yeah, we can. That would be
I
good.
think that would be
That would
neat
be
to
good.
see that. That's the
Okay.
main thing
I,
I would like
I,
to see is that
yeah,
tiny
yeah,
footprint.
yes. So yeah, when people would go to my mom's house, I go, "What is this?" Like, what's this?
It's so tiny.
It's so
You need a
small.
magnifying glass.
Yeah. So she asked the
So
sisters there
they took that footprint with them
with
to
them.
Assisi
Yeah,
while he was what's your son's name?
his true name is Raymond. Raymond
Raymond.
Daniel.
Okay.
Yeah. Well, you know how the Italians are, Dino. You have to name your firstborn son after the two grandfathers. So it's
Yeah.
Raymond and Daniel. Yep.
Okay.
Yeah. So, no, so it doesn't stop. So here's the other thing that just floored me. So then because of Saint Catherine of Laboure, I decided, well, okay, so we baptized him, right? Just the last rites with the hospital
Yeah.
priest. The next day, I remember I was so torn because I went to our parish priest and we were saying, we don't know what to name the baby, because we like this name, but what if he dies? Then we would have quote unquote wasted the name.
Right. Yeah,
I mean,
I know that
I,
happens. Yep.
yeah, I
That's a
felt
big
so
deal.
stupid. Yeah, I felt
Hmm.
stupid thinking about it, right? And he said, no, he goes, just name the baby you want to name him as. Don't worry about that. That's not something you should worry about. I go, okay. So there, we stuck to Raymond Daniel, which is what it was supposed to be.
Yeah.
Imagine that. And then, well, I was looking at what Saint Claire of Laboure, who she was, I decided to flip over. I had a book of saints at home. And so I looked up, who's Saint Raymond? Like, what about Saint Raymond? What is he? Who is he? You know what it came up to? It said that Saint Raymond is a saint for the unborn.
Oh, wow.
Yes. And I'm like, wow. He was basically right. I mean, when you think about the abortion, that goes on. This
Right.
is his saint. This is their saint, Saint Raymond.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Right, right.
So I became in tune with pro-life because of our
Yeah.
son. Because
Yeah.
when
Well,
there's
when you see a baby developing outside the womb that should be in the womb, then you would have more. What am I trying to say?
yeah, compassionate. Like you have
Yeah,
empathy. Like, hey,
you have more empathy for an unborn child since
yeah, this
your
is right.
child, you saw him outside the womb when he should have been inside, so you see his
Yeah.
development. Yeah.
So when I hear, pro-choice people say that it's just a glob of tissue and it's not, human, how can you say that? You can't
Yeah.
say that. They're human beings. They are, they're just
Right.
not developed, but they are. They're human. They're all there. And
Right.
so, yeah, it dawned on me when I'm dating myself because back then they had the yellow pages, where you had to look at the telephone number through the yellow book, the yellow pages of the telephone
Right.
book.
Right.
And so I had to look through for a number. And when I flipped it, I saw this ad and it said, we'll do abortions up to 24 weeks. And I go, that's my son, 24 weeks. No, no, how can you do that?
Yeah.
So, yeah, I became
It
more,
is.
yeah,
It is
pro-life.
sad. It is sad.
Yeah, very sad. So,
Yeah.
yeah, so that's our miracle. But miracle, I guess because of this also, I've become more in tune with, miracles that do happen, even
Right.
in the ordinary, or, God's going to guide you in ways that you can't imagine as long as you're open to Him and you allow Him in your life.
Yeah.
I think the important thing is allow Him in your life.
Yeah.
To be in your life.
So since you received this miracle, how has your faith changed?
So I'm human. When I received the miracle, right, I also basically took it for granted.
Yeah.
I lived life, the busy life, getting the kids. So we had 2 more kids after him. It was scary. But again, faith, I just said, hey, you know what, God will do his thing. I mean,
Mm-hmm.
whatever. But still, it was more of a, how would I say it? Shallow. It was shallower
Mm-hmm.
than, because I've grown in my faith. And
Yeah.
so life took us to a different path where the busyness and the, sports and the running here, running there, running everywhere,
Yeah.
So that the reality of life took over.
Right.
And then it got to a point where I found myself very unfulfilled. I mean, I had kids and I was happy that, but I was just busy with work and running them to places. And when they started becoming, young adults, I knew I needed to stop the busy life. I wasn't happy. I really wasn't a happy person.
Yeah.
And so I planned to retire. I just said, you know what? I need to just let everything go. It's okay. I need to retire. Um, and then I started praying. I said, well, what am I going to do? Like, God, show me, what do you want me to do? What is it that you want me to do? So then I just started praying that and saying
Yeah.
it. It wasn't prayer. I just started having conversation like, what do you want me to do? What do you want
Yeah.
me to do?
That's
And
a good question.
yeah. And then guess what happened? So my cousin from Canada just gets in touch with me to say hi. And, I go, what are you up to? And she goes, oh, guess what? I'm part of the board of this organization. I go, what organization? And she goes, Jesus, the Divine Mercy, Foundation of Jesus, the
Oh,
Divine Mercy.
okay.
I go, what? And she goes, look it up, just check it out, look it up and whatever. I go, okay, fine. So I checked it out. I looked at it and I go, okay, this is nice. Divine Mercy Chaplet for children. Okay. Worldwide challenge. Okay. Oh, so there's Uganda, there's, Vietnam, there's Spain, I go, wait, the Philippines isn't on this. There's no Philippines in this group. There's
Yeah.
got to be, no, we need the Philippines here. I told my cousin, we need the Philippines here. So then I said, okay, you're going to show me how to do this. I don't know how to do this, But like I said, miracles do happen because I was able to get a group of young Filipino kids in my community to do, no, first I had to translate the tune. I had to translate the tune, the English.
So you were inspired by the Divine Mercy Chaplet and the song and everything, and that's from the foundation.
Yeah, I was inspired. Okay, remember, I was just looking for something to do. And then when I saw that and the Philippines wasn't on there, my mission was, well, we need to get Filipino kids involved too. We got to get them involved. And then I became more drawn to it when I started hearing, how our young children these days, or people, not even just young, but you hear of suicide. So-and-so committed, so-and-so's child, committed suicide. The parent committed suicide. And then I started thinking, gosh, we gotta get rid of suicide. What is causing this?
Yeah.
And then when I learned more about the Divine Mercy, I said, gosh, if everybody just knew about God's love and mercy, nobody's gonna commit suicide. If they know God loves them. God loves them.
Right.
So that became, that was in my heart. I said, you know what, children, as early as we can, we need to really teach them that God loves them. You are loved. You're not junk. You are loved.
Right.
So that became my mission.
That's important. Yeah.
Yes, it's very important. So I had to find somebody.
So you did the Filipino translation?
No, my friend did.
You got it done?
I got it done, but I didn't do it myself because I didn't know how. I'm not a musician. I'm not even a linguist. I mean, no, I had to look for somebody to help me translate it into the tune because we had to follow. See, I don't know if you've seen it, but it's a tune and it's already set. Now the language then just needs to be changed. So you have to adapt and change the language, but you have to follow their tune. You can't change a tune. It's already there. So
and I saw the video. They have kids from all over the world saying the same song and the same prayer, and they switch from one to the other,
Yes.
and it all works. And that's
Yeah,
that's
exactly.
that's really amazing.
Yeah, so I had to find somebody who would do it for me. And then I had a friend who knew of a priest. He's a priest who did liturgical songs. So I approached her, and it took a year, nothing was happening. And I'm not pushy. It's like, God will do his thing at his time. So I thought I went to the quote unquote right person. I said, hey, can you ask that this be translated? Can you just help me? It's really short. I was trying to solicit and sell the idea.
Right.
And it didn't work. And then one day I came across my old high school classmate, and I knew she sang. She would sing as a backup singer for, big popular people in the Philippines. And I said, hey, Vicky, would you translate this for me? And she said, sure. She came back with a translation, music, everything,
Wow.
voiceover. She did the voiceover of the Renas, that they
Yeah.
did. So in 24 hours, it came back to me.
Wow.
What?
That's great.
With two versions. She even said, okay, here's the words. Here's one sample. Here's the other words. And so I had to choose which one. And I said, my gosh, she gave me two in
Yeah.
24 hours. I'm like, I was so jazzed. And then I told my cousin, I said, guess what? I have the Filipino translation. We got to do something. And then so she goes, you know what? I'm going to introduce you to two women. I said, really? For what? She goes, for this project. I go, okay, good. So I've met people online. I've never met them in person. And we've worked on this project, and it's been amazing. I am still in awe that we came up with this program, not knowing each other personally,
Yeah.
just helping each other. Pat would guide me, and Ben would tell me things, and I would give it. It's just amazing.
Yeah.
So so we can't wait where this is. We know where we want it to go. We have a vision, like I said, like we want all the Filipinos singing this chaplet and saying it and understanding that
Yeah.
God loves them. So we want to eradicate, like I said, suicide. That it shouldn't happen. It really shouldn't. No more anxiety, no more depression.
Yeah, so we have some good testimony for this foundation of Jesus the Divine Mercy, because we had this is the third, and it's just because Pat's been referring people to tell their miracle story, but she's in charge of this foundation. So we had Pat, and then we had Father, and then we have you that are in the foundation, and that's great that you're helping children and showing them that God loves them, and that's a great thing to do.
The nice thing about this, Dino, is how parents will do anything for their children. So, and that's what I told Pat. I said, this is fun because you know what? We're doing a 2-in-1 because the parents are also catechized at the same time, right?
Oh, right, because the children are taught, and then they teach their parents, or their parents help them learn, and they're looking at the same books and prayers and stuff. So that does happen. You're right. You're right.
Yeah, and the parents have to drive them there. They have to, the parents have to bring them to wherever they're at, right? So I'm like, this is good. So, like I said, it's been a good ride.
That's great.
Yeah, I look at it as, okay, God.
Well, what a miracle! That's a great story, and very, very good, very good.
Yeah,
excellent.
So do you want other miracles other than Divine Mercy people? Then, because I have.
Well, yeah. I mean, it's any. I'm looking for miracles from any religion, anybody. Any miracle. I think I kind of, maybe I overblew it at first. I was like, I want proof. I want all of this. And what I found is that there's no way to prove a miracle. If you think in your heart and God has touched you, then that's good enough for me. I mean, and we need people's testimony to say, I had a miracle. And just from their vouching for their own story and their own details of their stories, I think we can believe. We're not trying to turn into, how you have to have proven miracles to but to verify that, or canonize somebody, or turn them into a saint. you have to have
Yeah.
these proven miracles. We're not going to
Yeah.
do that. We don't need to do
Yeah.
that. We just want to
Yeah.
hear inspiring stories and things that are people feel that they've gotten a miracle, and that is those are great stories. So any religion, anybody, any miracle, they can come on the show and I can interview them, or else there's that phone number. If you call 412-446-0330, people can just call in and tell their story and not even be interviewed. They can just, and then we'll play those. We'll have a show where we'll have a bunch of those, and that's really what I wanted to do with this.
Oh, you could do that too. Just call.
Yeah, just call.
Yeah, I have a friend that's COVID related. He was, oh my God, we thought he was going to die.
Oh, good. That's a very topical one. So yeah, we'd like to hear that. Yeah, he can contact me and I can interview him, or he can just call the number and tell the story. And the phone number is weird because it says, okay, leave a message and we'll put it on the show. So I think people might be afraid of doing that. Maybe they think, I'm going to mess up. I'll sound dumb or whatever. But if you left a message and you don't like it, you can call back and try again, and we'll just use the better one or whatever. I mean,
I'll tell him.
I'm not going to make anyone sound dumb on a podcast, or I'm not going to just throw something up there and make someone sound ridiculous. But that's the idea. So anybody can call with any miracle, anytime.
Yeah, that's wonderful. No, I think what you're doing is great, because again, we need to, I wish this would just be in mainstream media, stories like this. Don't focus on the negative stuff and stop, just enough. Stop the drama.
Because you hear bad, like when you hear the news, it's bad news.
Yeah.
People being killed, people missing, people hurting each other, accidents, and that's important. But also we should have outlets for miracles. Yeah.
Good things. Like I think our world is hurting so much.
Mm-hmm.
It is too many, racist, whatever history. It's repeating itself and worse. Okay, so. Yeah, I think values should be brought and talking about those things, so that even our leaders are called and accountable, right? Is be accountable for why we're here too. Yeah. So I don't know. I mean,
there's podcasts of true crime is so popular now, about getting into the minds of murderers and stuff.
Oh, really?
Yeah. True crime podcasts and missing people and unsolved mysteries and all this negativity. So I think it's good to talk about miracles and good things that happen to people. And these are really interesting stories, I think, because, it's interesting, like your story, it's not how your baby died, it's how your baby lived, so that'll make you feel better, make you happy, and give people hope. Maybe they have a preemie or a
exactly
or something, and give them hope as with your story.
Exactly. Dino, so for a while there, for a year, even 2 years later, I would always say, why? In the beginning, it was more often I'd ask God, why? Why are you doing this? Right? Like, I was a good person. I didn't drink. I didn't do anything. I followed you. Why? Why would you do this? And I could, of course, you don't get the answers right then and there. But later on, I would say, well, maybe it's to inspire people, encourage other preemies. But you know what? I never had the opportunity because there were no groups. Like in the hospital, I would ask them, hey, are there support groups for moms like who have preemies, so that then we could ask them what their journey's like, or none. Right. There was none at that time. I don't know, maybe today there is, but I was always hoping that I could be connected with somebody, a mom that went through this, and there was no one.
Right.
So I went through it without anybody. I mean, except, like I said, my family, my husband, but it would have been nice. And I do want to be, I guess the reason I agreed to doing this is, again, to give God the glory. It's really not.
Yeah, because when we have a miracle, we should tell everybody about it. We want to hear about your good news and your good miracles.
Yeah. And I hope a mom that needs to hear this story will hear it. You know what I mean? Somebody's bound to need this.
Yeah, it'll be encouraging. Right? Yeah. Somebody who has a 24-week-old child that's terrified can find hope, and maybe they'll get their medal, the St. Katherine of Laboure. Give them the medal.
The miraculous medal itself, even,
right.
Because, when it was made, they said every person who got the medal received a miracle from her.
What, the original batch of medals?
Yes. When it was first made, every person who had it and got it had a miracle happen.
Wow.
Yeah, but it's still powerful. Like I said, I still believe in it. So, So there, our sacramentals are not amulets.
Yeah.
Intercessor there.
Right, and especially if you're praying with your, if you're not just throwing it in a drawer or something, if you actually, if it reminds you to pray and it gives you a link to God, then that is a good thing, that it reminds you of what you should be doing. That's the most important thing.
For sure. But I ignored the miraculous medal, right? Until St. Catherine came along. I'm like, oh, okay, I know who you are now.
Yeah.
It's funny. Yeah.
Well, that's amazing. That's amazing. Yeah. Well, thanks a lot. Thanks for being on the show, Ginny. I really appreciate it. Thank you for your story.
Yeah. Oh, you're welcome, Dino. My pleasure.
Okay, what an amazing testimony. For more information about the Foundation of Jesus the Divine Mercy, visit JesusTheDivineMercy.com. If you have a miracle story, call in and leave a message, 412-446-0330, or visit miraclehotline.com. If you truly believe in your heart that you have experienced a miracle, we want to hear from you. If your story is compelling enough, we will play it on the podcast, and we may even interview you. Subscribe to the Miracle Hotline podcast on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, or any podcast app to automatically download the newest episodes. The Miracle Hotline podcast is sponsored by Imagine Audio and Media for all of your audio and video production, voiceovers, and CD and DVD duplication. Visit ImagineAudioMedia.com. This has been the Miracle Hotline podcast. My name is Dino Pandolfo. Please give us a call at 412-446-0330 with your miracle story, or visit miraclehotline.com. Thanks for listening, and please call in.